My roommate's older brother took me by surprise, and I'm hooked. Max warned me that his brother was a walking disaster, but nothing could prepare me for the chaos and the sparks that Sebastian would bring into my life. I thought I was over him. Clearly, I was wrong. I heard the crash before I saw him, and by the time I entered the kitchen, there he was, shirtless, pants full of Hello Kitties, and complaining about his spilt coffee on my floor. The scent of burnt espresso hung heavy in the air, and I froze mid-step, deciding between laughing or running. Morning, sunshine, he said with a lopsided grin. Didn't realize you were the type to sleep in until noon. I glanced at the clock, and it was barely 7 a.m. What the heck are you doing here? I asked, pretending he didn't take me completely by surprise. I'm here to pull your feet while you sleep, he said. My personal haunting spirit then, huh? I said sarcastically. That's when Max came into the room and chuckled at the view. Don't let my brother drive you crazy, Julian. He's good at it. Why am I the last to know that we had visitors? I asked, annoyed. I thought I mentioned, Max replied in the middle of a yawn. I'll be here for some time. When did you even get there? I raised a brow. 20 minutes ago? I rolled my eyes and turned to him. 1,200 seconds and you're already trashing my house. Great. I returned to my room, amazed by how fast he made me already want to disappear. I heard a knock on my door a while later, and as I zipped my jeans, Max came in, his grin mischievous as always. Something happened, and he asked to stay here, and I couldn't say no. Nor should you. It's okay, Max, I said, laughing softly. I forgot how lively he was. He laughed outright. That's putting it mildly. He likes to annoy, so the calmer you are, the quicker he'll move on. Good advice, sis, I mocked nonchalantly, trying to ease my memories and the fact that I've known Sebastian far more than Max knew. And yes, he liked to annoy. 2 days later. I tried to brush off the discomfort Sebastian brought back into my life, convincing myself it was just irritation. But every time he looked at me with those sharp eyes, the past crept up uninvited. Need help with that toast? He asked as I fumbled with the toaster. I didn't respond, letting the bread pop, slightly charred as usual. It didn't bother me. Nothing bothered me more than Sebastian being in my space. You know, he started, leaning up against the counter and grinning. If you'd let me, I could teach you how to make the perfect toast. I'm pretty skilled. Max snorted from the table, coffee in hand. You can't even boil an egg. Add noise and chaos to that list and we have the top 3, I said. Sebastian smirked, grabbing a piece of my toast before I could stop him. I may not be a chef, but I can handle complicated situations. Complicated? Max laughed. Dude, you're the personification of a loose wire. Sebastian shot Max a glare, then turned to me. Which means I can navigate tricky dynamics. Right, Julian? I looked at him, deadpanned. The only dynamic I see you is annoying everyone in this room. The tension thickened between us, and the heat was rising up my spine. Max yawned and stretched. It's too early for this. Just ignore him, Julian. This is what he wants. I sighed. You're no help. Max shrugged. I have better things to do. Don't let him get under your skin. He lives for it. Old habits die hard. Sebastian smirked as Max left. I was about to follow Max's advice when Sebastian stepped closer, his coffee-scented breath brushing my ear. And you're still as fun to rile up as ever. I shot him a glare, but it only made his smile widen. He lingered, his gaze locking onto mine before changing the subject. So, any exciting plans today? Or just more academic torture and burnt toast? I've got work to do, unlike you. I tried to move toward the door, but he blocked my way. I'm 6 years older than you. I've graduated, and I didn't lose my sense of humor. What did college do to you? I'm done here. Oh, come on, he urged, not budging. You're not gonna leave me all alone here, are you? My heart raced as he got too close, his scent mixing with the memories that always lingered between us. I was about to snap. Sebastian, I said, voice steady, I'm not in the mood for your childish games. I gently pushed his arms aside, but as Max reappeared, Sebastian let me go. I shot him a last look of frustration. Why does he always do this? The next day, I just finished cleaning the bathroom when I walked back into my room, and there he was, Sebastian hastily shoving something into the drawer. His whole body went rigid, the suddenness of my appearance catching him off guard. He sighed, then slammed the drawer shut with more force than necessary. Not enough to live with me? Now you have to go through my stuff? I asked, keeping the tone calm but sharp enough to make my point. I wasn't snooping, he snapped. But there was no conviction in his voice, like he was trying to convince himself more than me. I raised an eyebrow, noticing the slight tremor in his fingers. No, because the drawer didn't exactly accidentally slam shut, I shot back, a smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. The act felt petty, but I wasn't going to let him brush this off. Sebastian's frustration was palpable. He let out a sigh, shoulders sagging as he turned to face me, looking tired. Fine, he muttered, barely meeting my eyes. I was looking. Happy now? I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe, letting the silence linger between us, weighing heavily. Well, what did you find? I asked, keeping my voice low, as if the stakes were higher than they seemed. He hesitated, eyes flickering back to the drawer, a long beat of silence hanging in the air. I could see it, the way that he was teetering on the edge, like something was about to break. Come on, tell me, I pressed, my voice darker now. What was it? My collection of what? Dildos? My decade-old fashion choices? Or, oh, wait, did you find my middle school yearbook? Those braces were iconic. The grin on my face didn't reach my eyes, and I saw it. His expression tightened the tension in his jaw, the flickering of something in his eyes. I knew I hit a nerve. He shifted like he regretted letting me in. I should go, he said too quickly, taking a step towards the door, but there was something in his voice, something too panicked, that made me stop him with a single word. Why? He froze, hand hovering over the doorknob, his posture shrinking, like I cornered him. You love to get under my skin, I said, stepping closer, my voice sharpening. So why can't I do the same, It's my room, Sebastian. What were you really looking for? His eyes darted towards the drawer again, and for the first time, I saw the mask slip. A flicker of vulnerability, the cracks forming in his carefully constructed facade. He was torn, and I could see it, the internal battle. And then, as if he couldn't hold it anymore, he sighed heavily, resigned. I didn't know you still had this, he muttered, more to himself than to me. Is this about our picture? Why wouldn't I keep it? I asked with my arms crossed tightly over my chest. It's just a piece of paper. He finally met my gaze, and there was something raw, something unguarded in his eyes. I thought you would have thrown it away, he said quietly, like it hurt him to even admit it. The words hit me hard, sharper than I expected. My chest tightened, the anger rising faster than I could control. You walked out on my life like I meant nothing, and you're acting like this picture means something to you? I spat, my voice thick with bitterness. How dare you? My whole body stiffened. This was before everything went wrong, he said, his voice almost breaking, his eyes locking onto mine, before they ruined it. They, his family, the ones who never let me forget that I wasn't good enough. The words caught in my throat, suffocating me, but I fought it through. Don't you dare blame them, I snapped, voice sharp and accusing. You were the one who left. You made that choice. He flinched, but just barely. But there was enough tension in his jaw like he was trying to hold everything back. You think I had a choice? He stopped himself, shaking his head bitterly. Maybe I shouldn't have looked. Sebastian started for the door again, but I couldn't let him get away this time. I stepped forward, fists clenched at my side, my voice low but demanding. No, you don't get to walk away again. What does that even mean to you? He hesitated, his hand hovering over the drawer, unsure. When he finally spoke, it was quieter, almost deafened. It means I was happy once too. And I messed it up. The admission hit me harder than I expected. It left me standing there, a mix of anger and something I couldn't place churning inside me. Before I could respond, he muttered, "Good night, Julian," and he left the room, the door clicking shut behind him. I stood there for a moment, staring at the drawer, before I finally reached for the picture. The weight of what we were, the memories wrapped in that photo, crushed me. I wanted to cry, but it felt like a cruel joke now. How could he show me any affection after that? 5 days later, I filled my summer with work hours, just like Sebastian had said, pushing my brain to shut down and accept the reality. He was just being him. Focusing was tough. His teasing, his provoking, his infuriating presence, always there and always distracting. The clock said dinner had passed. The house was quiet for once as I walked into the living room, and of course, there he was. Sebastian sprawling on the couch as he owned it, remote in hand, feet up on the armrest, flipping channels aimlessly, but he knew I was there. I glanced at my phone, pretending not to notice him. By the time I walked behind the couch, his voice stopped me. "What's up, Julian?" "Nothing," I muttered, pausing mid-sentence towards the kitchen. My brain was fried from non-stop thesis work. "Nothing?" He chuckled, not even glancing at me. "I find that hard to believe. You always have something to say. A curse, an adjective." He finally looked up and made those ridiculous puppy eyes and pouted in a mock sad tone. "Or maybe you're mad at me." I clenched my jaw. "I'm not mad at you." He laughed again, the playful edge in his voice I hated. "No? Because you've been pretty grumpy. What is it, your period?" "Shut up, Sebastian." He leaned forward, smirking. "Why so serious? I thought we were past the silent treatment." I stayed quiet, hoping that he'd drop it, which he didn't. "And just so you know, you still call my name in that very hot tone." I had no response. I was caught in a game that I didn't want to play, and I was losing. Again. "Don't you have anywhere else to go? Maybe some friends, or are you just so unbearable that no one can stand you anymore?" I shot back. Max walked in all of a sudden, dressed to kill. "All right, boys, Mom is here to end all this nonsense," he declared, voice dropping with dramatic flair before sighing like a parent on their last nerve. "This is getting old." Sebastian didn't even flinch. "We're just bonding, Mommy, no need to worry," he equipped, his voice annoyingly smug. Max gave us a once-over, raising an eyebrow. I shot him a glare, but of course Sebastian wasn't done. "He was even thinking about asking me to stay forever," Sebastian added, dragging out the word like a bad rom-com villain. "I told him it'd be too much, though." Max snorted, waving us off with his perfectly manicured hand. "Right, my night off. Have fun with whatever this is," he said, gesturing vaguely between us before heading out. "Enjoy your youth, little bro," Sebastian called after him, full of fake cheer. The door shut behind Max, leaving just the two of us. I felt the crack forming, the weight of Sebastian's presence suffocating me. 2 years later, and I still hadn't moved on. There was something beneath his words. It wasn't just teasing, it was a hint. I didn't want to play these games anymore, not tonight and not ever again. Then my stomach growled loudly, betraying me. Sebastian raised his eyebrow. "Have you eaten tonight?" "I don't think so. I'll burn some more toast," I said, shrugging. But before I could blink, he was up. His sharp green eyes and perfect dark hair made me feel small, and his polished clothes and posture reminded me of how much of a mess I was. "Here, sit," he ordered. "I'll make you the perfect toast." I never asked why he left so abruptly. I was too hurt, so I moved on. When I was 22, he was 28, just starting his business while I focused on architecture school and playing the piano, until I couldn't anymore. He loved my playing, but it hurt too much to keep doing it. "The terrible chef has served you dinner," he said, handing me a plate. Grilled cheese. It smelled too good to be real. "No toast? I'd like to speak to your manager," I teased, trying to keep my voice steady. "The chef said if you complain, he'll feed you himself." "Compliments to him, then," I muttered. "Good boy," he said, and I shivered. "What are you watching?" I swallowed my unhealed pain and shrugged, looking at him. "Guess." His laughter filled the silence, warm and familiar. For a moment, I let myself pretend everything was normal. The room was quiet except for the cartoon. His arm brushed mine, and I stiffened. The tension between us was unbearable. "What's this?" he teased. "A whole world of distractions and you're stuck here?" I shot him a glance. "I like the quiet of my own home." "Lucky you." His tone shifted softer. "What's that supposed to mean?" He sighed, eyes fixed on the screen. "Just... it's nice, having a home that you want to come back to." I studied him in the dim light, his features unexpectedly vulnerable. Wasn't 30 supposed to be the age of success? He met my gaze, something raw flashing in his expression. I couldn't control my heartbeat anymore. His presence shattered everything. "Sometimes I wish I was 28 again," he said, and before I could respond, he leaned in, too fast. His breath mingled with mine, and then his lips were on mine, soft and clumsy, like he hadn't planned it. A touch so impulsive as our bodies twisted. I froze, caught off guard, unprepared for the wave of memories and sensations that hit me. I couldn't shut him off. My body simply allowed him in, my mouth melting back on his, the air burning through my throat, and my mind scrambling for something that made any sense. I touched his arm, caught between pushing him away and pulling him closer, but he broke the first kiss. His face was flushed, his eyes clouded with fragility, laced with his usual mocking edge. "Yes, the 20s are way better," he said, half amused, half something darker. I sat there, gasping like I'd just come up for air, my chest tight. What the hell was that?" He shrugged, casual as ever. "I don't know. Just wanted to see if you'd react." My stomach twisted, and I shot to my feet. "How can you be so cruel?" I snapped. "Why not just keep pretending there's nothing between us? Why the hell did you kiss me?" He leaned back, relaxed, as if he hadn't just sent me reeling. "I don't have an answer for that." His eyes locked onto mine, sending a chill through my entire body. "Just so you know, I'm not sorry." I opened my mouth to demand clarification, but he cut me off. "The kiss. Now." The memory of his lips still burned, fueling my anger with everything unsaid. I wanted to shove him away, but deep down, I knew I wouldn't. I hadn't escaped him since the day that we broke up. "That's it? Silence?" he asked, his voice cutting through the tension. I glared at him, my voice unsteady. "You're insane." "Maybe," he said, his tone softer now, almost dangerous. "But you've always liked my madness, haven't you?" I glared at him, anger and hurt bubbling. "I thought I meant something, Sebastian, but to you, I'm still a joke." "Great, thanks for making that crystal clear." His eyes darkened with an intensity I couldn't read. "Who said anything about a joke?" he murmured. "I'm just doing what I know I can." I let out a bitter laugh, caught between outrage and disbelief. "You must be out of your mind." He chuckled softly, tilting his head like he had all the answers. "You think I don't notice how you tense up when I'm nearby? How hard you try to hide that I get under your skin?" I clenched my fist. I couldn't believe where we were going there. "Who do you think you are?" I yelled. "You can't just walk in and out of my life, messing with my head just because you know that I'm attracted to you. Do you even realize how cruel that is?" Sebastian tilted his head, his eyes scanning mine. "I never said you'd be fine," he quietly said. I ran my hand through my hair, overwhelmed and furious. "Just stop, okay? Don't," I said firmly. "I don't want this. Not from you, not anymore. You broke me once, and I'm still putting myself back together." He stared at me, silent for a long moment. For a second, I thought he might actually finally back off, but instead, he sighed and stepped closer, cornering me against the wall. "Who said I'm fine?" he murmured, his hands hovering near my face but never touching. "I can fake it, just like you. The difference is, I'm better at it." With that, he left me standing there, my heart pounding as if the ground beneath me had turned into quicksand. What was that? A week later, the days followed like nothing happened, neither the kiss nor the talking. For the first time in a while, Sebastian spent most of his days off the house, which was the total opposite of the first days in and Max's information about his stay. It was peaceful for me. Less time seeing him meant more time to work and try to relax. But still, every now and then, I crossed paths with him late at night, and each encounter left me feeling off, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing that I was about to fall but pretending that I don't care. Tonight's encounter occurred as well. He found me in the kitchen, barefoot and brooding over a cup of coffee. "Still burning toast, I see." His voice, that damn smirk, slid under my skin. "Still making my life miserable, I see," I retort. My words were sharper than I intended, but the irritation felt familiar, comfortable. Sebastian only smirked, stepping closer, and I could feel the heat from his body before I saw him fully. There was a magnetic pull between us, and it was pulling harder than I have ever felt before. "Miserable? You sure about that?" He was too close now. I could smell the cologne, that damn scent that I've been trying to forget, and it was working against me, making my heart race and my pulse quicken. I could feel it all. The tension, the old ache that never really gone away. Every part of me was screaming to step back, to tell him to leave, but something in me didn't want to. Not this time. I swallowed the words stuck in my throat. My brain told me to hold on, to stop the madness before it spiraled out of control, but my body was already moving. My hand gripped the front of his shirt, pulling him closer. And before I could stop, before I could even think through the mess of emotions surging through me, I kissed him. It was reckless, desperate. a collision of frustration and longing I couldn't deny anymore. He tasted like everything I tried to ignore for so long, familiar, intoxicating, dangerous. And then, as quickly as it started, I pulled away. My breath hitched, my heart pounding in my chest. Sebastian's eyes were wide, his lips parted, as though he hadn't expected it either. But there was something else in his gaze, a flicker. A few days later, it was almost sunrise when I woke up. There was no trace of my sleepiness coming back. I met him in the living room, watching TV. His eyes weren't focused, and his skin was pale. It was a sight. I had never seen him exhausted, looking small and distant. He felt like a whole different person as I leaned inside the room, making my presence aware. "Everything okay?" He flinched slightly, shutting his phone down. "Yeah, just thinking," he muttered, but the casualness in his voice couldn't hide the strain beneath. He was deflecting something. "Thinking about?" I asked, stepping closer. He looked up, giving me a familiar grin, but unfortunately for him, I knew when that was a facade. "Don't worry, Julian. Just plotting world domination, you know, the usual." The joke fell flat, but the hollow tone beneath it lingered, and I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow I could do something about him. "Sebastian, seriously." He stood up, annoyed enough actually to leave, and I took another step closer to him. As his eyes flickered to mine, I saw the crack in the armor that I've never seen before. He wanted to keep me out, but I wouldn't let him. Not anymore. Damage was done. What else could I lose? I moved in, closing the space in between us. "You don't have to pretend with me," I said softly. The tension grew, but he didn't move, didn't pull me away. My hands were shaking as I reached for his perfectly shaped face. The vulnerability in his eyes moved before I could even think about what I was doing. He froze as I brushed the skin, his eyes desperate for something we didn't know. It took me only a heartbeat of silence, and in an uncalculated act, I leaned myself in, closing the space between us, kissing him with a hunger that surprised me since all I intended was with some kind of comfort. When I broke away, our foreheads rested together. I kept my eyes closed, afraid of what reality would hit when I would open them. "I don't know what I'm doing with my life," he whispered, voice cracked, and it made me want to kiss him again, but I shouldn't. "Neither do I whispered back. "You should rest." "I can't sleep," he said simply, his hand caressing my arm like it used to. "Can I go in your bed?" he joked, and even though I was annoyed, I was relieved. "No, dummy," I said quietly, our foreheads still touching. "You broke up with me a long time ago." He sighed and moved away. He paused as he turned to leave. "I missed you." And just like that, he was gone, leaving me alone with the question I so wanted to know. "Why did you leave me then?" I asked. My voice was fragile as my heart. Things are different now. Sebastian had pulled away, but this time I felt like he was playing with my emotions, keeping me close enough to remember the past, but not enough to make it real. His face tightened, and for a moment, I thought he'd deflect again, but then something shifted. "I was scared," he confessed, voice trembling. "I didn't know how to fight for you against my family. I was afraid of losing everything, and now I regret it." His words hit me harder than I expected. I hated him for leaving, but I couldn't deny how much I still cared. 5 days later. For the next few days, I told myself that it was just an old habit. Stolen kisses, lingering glances, whispered moments behind Max's back. Sebastian wasn't getting under my skin again. I was just keeping my distance. I was in control. I felt everything was smooth and bearable. Until at some point at dinner, Max let something slip out. It was casual, almost an afterthought, but the words sent a sharp jolt through my chest. "Sebastian's been under a lot of pressure lately," he mumbled. "Family stuff, you know." I furrowed a brow. Family pressure? "Yeah, Dad's still pissed about the whole engagement thing," Max muttered casually. I froze, my stomach twisting. "Engagement?" Max's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, you didn't know?" I barely heard the explanation after that. Sebastian had been engaged to someone else. All while I had spent years trying to forget him. I barely registered to move until I stood on Sebastian's doorstep, pissed as hell. Engaged? I demanded louder than I meant. I could sense Max behind me, but my eyes were still on Sebastian. Jules, his face paled. You're engaged? I blurted out. Not anymore. What am I supposed to do with that? His jaw tightened. It wasn't about you. Not about me? My voice cracked. You're here, kissing me, playing games, messing with my feelings all over again. What's your excuse now? He looked away, voice low. My family, they wanted me to settle down and be with someone who fits their legacy. I thought I'd disappoint you, so I threw me away. I finished, the words sharp. You didn't even give me a choice. I didn't know how to handle it, he admitted quietly. I shook my head, overwhelmed. Unbelievable! I laughed bitterly. I left my room, the tears falling when I laid down on the bed, feeling like I'd been smashed like a bug. I was done with all of that once more. And forever, I hoped. The next week, I've been out of the house the most that I could. Sebastian was still there. Max kept his cool after discovering that I knew nothing about it, and even though he knew about us. So the lies were just all over the place, all on my toasts and the tickings of the clock. I buried myself in my work, pretending the fight never happened, telling myself I was fine, but every time my phone buzzed, I couldn't help but half hoping it was Sebastian. Every time I walked into the kitchen and saw that he wasn't there, I felt something disappointingly close to relief, because relief meant that I didn't have to deal with the mess in my head. Sebastian's teasing disappeared, and I should have felt relief, but instead, I felt more restless than ever. Then, one night, I was heading to the kitchen. I heard Sebastian's voice, low, tense, and carrying an edge of something that I've never heard before. I froze just outside the door, my breath caught in my throat. Dad, I'm not coming back. Silence. Because I'm done living for you. I'm done being your perfect son. I don't care what the family thinks. I'm not losing him again. My breath hitched. Sebastian turned then, locking eyes with me, and at that moment I saw it, the raw fear, the longing, the truth that he had been too afraid to say. His voice cracked, didn't know you were home. You meant that? I whispered. Sebastian nodded, his eyes unwavering. He breathed heavily and then said, My dad gave me an ultimatum that year we broke up. If I stayed with you, I'd be cut off from the family business with no financial support, nothing. He even tried to set me up with a woman, but I couldn't. So I started my own company and tried to do things my own way. He ran a hand down his hair, frustration evident in his eyes. But none of that mattered because I couldn't stop thinking about you, and that's why I'm here, trying to figure all this out. My heart raced as Sebastian's gaze locked onto mine, his next words firm. As you can see, he tilted his head to his phone. He's still trying to make me give up and come back, but I won't. Every wall I built crumbled in an instant. Sebastian got closer, and I allowed it. Incapable of doing that once more, to pretend I didn't care, pretend I didn't want to. Once he was in front of me, he caressed my cheek. I never stopped wanting you, Julian. I just didn't know how to fight for you. Every wall I built crumbled in an instant. Keep fighting. Promise me. Sebastian reached for me, his hand steady on my shoulder and the other still on my face. I'm not going anywhere. Please, believe me. Before I could say anything else, he leaned in, his lips capturing mine in a kiss that was anything but teasing. It was deep and desperate, like he was trying to prove something. All that said was deadly serious and dangerous. How did he manage to deal with all of that? And for me, how could I not believe him? And he was here, kissing me. All the puzzle pieces finally put together. For a moment, I let myself sink into it, my hands fisting in his shirt as if holding on can make everything okay. We kissed deeply, intimately. Our feelings mixed, getting transformed into something that would give me the courage to put my hand on his. And that time, I was the one who owed him that. So I would. For him. Conclusion, Sebastian was still chaotic, still noisy, but now he was my chaos, and I was ready to handle it. The sharp edges of the past soften, and the weight of our old wounds easing as we focus on making things right. The days blurred into a rhythm. Teasing arguments, quiet mornings, and moments so normal they felt extraordinary. Sebastian and his father stopped talking that year. As for mine, he didn't approve that I was gay, but over time, my mother helped him understand. If Sebastian could face it, so could I. It was my life, my choice, and I wasn't looking for his approval. I would still follow his path in some things, but my love life, that was mine to define. And I admire how Sebastian navigated everything, messy as it was. As for his father, we let it go, and the family legacy passed to Max, who embraced it without hesitation. At home, life settled into a peaceful routine. We officially live together now, in my room, well, our room, and Sebastian teased me relentlessly until I was playing the piano again. We talked a lot about our future, my graduation, his career, and how we'd soon need to leave. The thought was scary but comforting, knowing that I'd face it all with him by my side. One day, as we were tangled in the blankets watching a film, Max walked in, stopped mid-step, and sighed dramatically. And I'm starting to think that you two are a little too perfect for each other, he said, his voice flat but his words laced with humor. I glanced up, grinned, and replied, "You're absolutely right." And so we were. For choosing each other, for hoping together, and for finally loving freely. With the hum of the TV, Sebastian's arm around me, and Max's chatter filling the room, I finally understood what Sebastian had meant about having a home to return to. And in that moment, I felt complete, knowing that he would always have my heart, and our house would always be his home. The end. Have you ever felt torn between standing up for love and respecting family expectations? Let us know down below. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to be part of our Rainbow Force. And as always, stay wholesome.